She's made you laugh as Azul on Border Patrol. And if you are one of the lucky ones, you got a chance to see her live and in person on her nationwide stand-up tour. From comedy to acting to podcasting, she's truly a woman who does it all. Oh, and she's got a hot pizza ass. Give a big dog, a little dog welcome to stand-up comedian, writer, actor, Erin Darling. I'll put some sound effects for a round of applause in there for you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Erica. I'm so excited for this new show. It's about time you have a podcast.
Listen, I feel like this is like my third or fourth foray into podcasting. It's hard to keep up. Like, it's a lot of managing of your time, your talent, of the producing and the editing. So yes.
Oh yeah, I've like had the same experience. Like I've had other podcasts before too, and sometimes like I partner with the studio or another person, and then it is like you learn things along the way where you're just kind of like, okay, so how do I want to do this? How do I take control? And like what story or what theme is the most important to me personally, you know? And that's like the one that ends up having the most legs, I think.
Right. Well, let's talk about your current podcast, A Hot Pizza Ass. I was like, what in the hell is Erin talking about? But I went to the premiere party and it was fantastic. You have so much support, and your show, I think, is very genius. So tell everyone out there about A Hot Pizza Ass and what the inspiration behind it is.
I was so excited that you came to the premiere. But Hot Pizza Ass is basically, it's a podcast about self-love and body positivity. So I interview guests about their journey on that path, whatever it is. Like my personal path, you know, I've struggled with body image issues. I've had eating disorders in the past. And so this is all stuff that I talk about from my POV. But, you know, every guest that comes on has a different story, a different struggle, a different journey that they want to highlight. And so I just kind of let it become like a conversation, a very honest and vulnerable conversation about the ways that we have to, you know, figure out what we need to do to love ourselves more, which is, I guess that's kind of zeitgeisty now. I feel like self-love is like a thing.
I want to also challenge that because in this day and age, we have the Lizzos and the Ashley Grahams who are always flaunting themselves. You know, I would say that they are the epitome of a hot pizza ass. Not because, you know, not because of their size, but because they literally embody loving like their bodies as they are. But how do you navigate the difference between celebrating who you are as a woman or as a man, but also still trying to be, you know, healthy and promote, you know, a healthy lifestyle?
I mean, that's such a great question, but I think like people like you mentioned before, Ashley Graham and Lizzo are great examples of that. You know, like they are just so outward with their love. And I think that as women especially, we kind of have this shame thing about projecting an image of us that we love. And I don't know why that is, but I just feel like it's a way that we bond with each other. We bond with each other through like negativity or through gossip or through, oh, I don't like this about myself, or I feel fat today, I shouldn't order this at brunch. You know, it's kind of like, I don't know why it's just such an invasive part of the way that we socially interact with each other. And so when we have these people that are out there just so unafraid for the judgment to say, hey, like I love myself, I'm proud of my body, and you might not like my body, this might not be your cup of tea, but it is certainly mine. And I think there's something so powerful about that. And when it comes to the health aspect, like I think that's mentally extremely healthy, you know? Okay. But like even sometimes in the podcast, you know, like I comment some things on like things that happen in pop culture. And I remember like a couple months ago, Jillian Michaels was speaking out about right. And I didn't feel like she was saying anything bad. She was just saying there might be health issues that she might encounter, but it became this whole like Jillian Michaels versus Lizzo thing. And I was like, I'm not about that drama. You know, like Jillian Michaels is a health professional. That's what she does. So she's going to say stuff like that. And Lizzo is a self-love like guru and pop star who's going to say what she says. They can both exist in the world.
You can. You know? I think Jillian got as much grief as she did because her whole persona has been very militaristic, very, you know, balls to the wall, do it the way I say, and there's no room for grace. There's no room for doing it any other kind of way. And I think people had this preconceived notion based on her brand, and they took that personally because it came across as mean and not empathetic. But I agree with you. I don't think that she said anything that was too off the wall.
Yeah, and even when she was asked about it, I think TMZ asked her, like she just always like stood to her guns, but was just like, look, like this is what I believe, this is what I said. It's not like I'm literally not trying to take down someone else, but it's just like from my POV, this is what I see. And it's like I just don't understand why we're always at each other's throats for everyone. Like there has to be a villain in every scenario. And I'm like, why can't we just look at this like it's gray, you know? Like we
Well,
don't have to always fit in one category, I don't think.
we don't, but I think as humans, we want someone to cheer for and someone to cheer against. Even when we
Yeah.
watch television shows, our favorite movies, like there has to be a villain, there has to be an antagonist and a protagonist for the storyline to evolve. So I get that. I mean, that's a very effed up thing about how we're like wired as humans. But I mean, just let's just admit it. Like COVID-19, if nothing else, has really proven that we are a very wicked species. Speaking of, how are you doing with COVID-19?
I'm doing okay actually.
Yeah.
I'm healthy, I'm safe, my family is healthy and safe. I'm in California and I feel like, our cases are starting to go up, but at the same time, I feel like our governor's doing a good job of trying to curb that. But it's also like a mystery. No one knows exactly what's going on. There's new information that comes out and it's changing every day. And I honestly feel like for the most part, people are just trying to do the best they can to protect themselves with a couple of outliers that are doing whatever they want. And it's a really interesting thing though to see with society because you're like, man, like some people just do not care at all.
Right. I mean, you see people going out on their daily errands and who refuse to wear masks. And it's so important. Like I've seen the parallel, I'm sure you've seen it, where people say, well, back in the 80s when seatbelts were required by law, it was not only to protect yourself, but it was to protect the people in your car and your children. And I don't know if that's the right parallel to make with the face masks, but I feel like it's in the same family, like protect yourself, but also protect people who are around you just in case your ass is asymptomatic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you so much there. It's so wild. I don't understand what people don't get about that.
Hey!
Well, I've been following you for a long time, and one of the things that I see that you post about a lot recently during the pandemic is taking care of yourself. I agree with that. Take care of yourself. Okay, so
Mhm.
no one get it twisted. I agree about taking care of yourself, but you post about if you just don't want to do anything, if you don't want to be productive, that's your prerogative. And while it is, as an artist, as you are a comedian, an actor, a writer, how how can you say with confidence it's all right to just not do anything when we actually have more time on our hands than we've ever had to be the most productive as possible?
I totally see what you're saying. I mean, it's weird because we kind of have that like catch 22. Like at first, I was super productive. Like the first, I want to say 6 weeks, I wrote, I did an animated show. I had sketches for the characters drawn up. Like I was super, super productive. And then around week 6, I started hitting this plateau per se, where not only did I not feel productive or creative, I also felt really, really frustrated and scared because then it started to hit me. Wow, how long could this go on for? Is this our new reality? Is this really going to be the next year of our lives? Is 2020 completely over at this point? And that can be really, really overwhelming and frustrating. And I think at that point, that's when I started approaching my productivity with a little more grace, which for me would be like, hey, like last Thursday, I was like, I just kind of want to read. I just read a book all day. I read a book, I went on a walk. And so I'm giving myself days in the space to kind of just chill and not put expectations on myself because you're probably very similar to me in the sense that like we as freelancy creative types of people with a million jobs and things on our plate, we
Yeah,
have to set deadlines for
we
ourselves.
do. Yeah,
And right. And when you do that, it's like so easy to forget that we're in a pandemic. Like I was like, oh man, am I just pushing myself to be super, super productive? Or should I like take a moment and realize I might not ever get this break again? Like maybe I do want to read that book. Maybe I do want to like hang out with my dog and walk around, and go on a hike or something like that, now that we can hike again.
hike with your face mask, which is so.
Right.
I've been running outside with my face mask, and I swear to you, by the time my run is over, it's soaking wet with sunscreen and sweat. Literally, like breathing in like a mouth breathe. I feel like, what the hell is it even worth it? But yeah, it is worth it because, as you said, you have to give yourself grace to take care of your mental health. But I also feel that people have different circumstances, right? Some
Right.
people have kids. Some people are working at home while they're trying to homeschool. Some people don't have unemployment yet. So everyone's set of circumstances is different. But I think that, as you said earlier, about projecting what you want onto other people, my
Mhm.
projection is I cannot believe that I have as much downtime now than I've ever had in my adult life. I don't have to drive. I don't have to sit in audition traffic. There's so many things that about my life that have changed. And so I'm trying to, not trying, I am pulling out these new nuances and being more productive. Again, not bragging, but I think that people have different ways to deal. But I like what you're saying. Like everyone has to give themselves grace. I haven't been giving myself a lot of grace.
I had this weird feeling of like feeling unproductive. Like I was like, what is going on? Like, what race am I running in? You know what I mean? Like the world has stopped. I'm feeling like I'm not productive. I'm feeling like really frustrated. There's a bunch of stuff I want to do. I'm not sure what I should be doing. And so I wasn't giving myself enough grace at the time either. So I like, sometimes I have to like make these little adjustments as I go, right? Like as we all do. And so my solution to that was doing some remote Reiki. And what I realized is the thing that was making me feel so frazzled and crazy was social media. Like I'll get up in the morning, I'll scroll, I'll be like, what's everybody up to? It's how we're feeling connected to the world, right? And then I'll see all this stuff and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm so behind. Everyone's doing stuff. All the comedians are doing shows. Everyone's podcasting. Everyone's talking about all the stuff they're doing. And I'm just like, and then I realized like a lot of the things I've been posting, like they're directed toward me. You know what I mean? Like when I post stuff, I post it because it resonates with me. And so when I'm saying stuff like, don't put pressure on yourself to be creative, like if you need to take this time to relax, like do that. And I realized like that is what I needed to hear. And all of my craziness was coming from a lot of social media interaction more heavily, because that's how we're getting all of our social interaction. Do you have that experience?
I do. I like that you're saying this. I mean, I don't like it because it's like I feel convicted. But
Yeah.
I'm the same way. And I look at your social media, for example, and I think that you're doing a fantastic job. Me, on the other hand, like I'm a writer. Like, I mean, obviously I act, produce, and write, but like I find fault with myself when I'm not able to post the sexy enough picture and like the quirky enough caption. And so I spend most of my time on social media on Twitter and then the occasional like Facebook rant when it comes to sports. But Instagram has never really been my thing because I do feel like it's more geared towards the look, the sexiness, the sleekness. And so when I look at what people are posting on Instagram first thing in the morning, shame on me for checking it first thing in the morning, I'm like, ugh, what do I need to do to be better, to catch up, to stay afloat? So that's what gives me anxiety during this time. You just started your new comedy series where you're helping up and coming comedians learn how to be their authentic selves on the stage. So let's start with your comedy class and how you came up with that and how that's going and what you hope to achieve with that.
Yeah, so I launched a course called How to Find Your Voice in Comedy. And, I spent 3 weeks in quarantine working on it, creating this curriculum. It has videos, it has audio lessons, it has written lessons as well. So it's for all types of learners. And you know what? I wanted to create a resource for people to get better at comedy while we were in quarantine, because with the lack of stage time, which is a huge part of how people get better in comedy, how are we supposed to feel like we're still, working that muscle? So I was like, this is a great time for comics, for young comics, for mid-level comics, or even people that just want to begin, that have thought about it and just never had the time to do it, to look at writing, to write new material, to look at their old material, to edit, to expand it. And so I created a course like very focused on comedy writing, whether it's, comedy writing in general or whether it's stand-up. And so I just really want to do this as a gift for people to be able to work on that and to have these resources at a very affordable price point, because as you know, like classes, like education in Los Angeles for entertainment is so expensive. It can be like $300 to $500.
People out there watching who are not in Los Angeles and don't know the industry, like we literally like dry our bank accounts with classes,
Yeah.
with workshops. It's astronomical.
I know. And I feel like education and mentorship should be affordable. Like I really, really deeply believe that. And so I wanted to create this resource for people for under $100, where they could have all of these like lessons, have things to work on, have a way to access me as a mentor, so I just really wanted to create this.
Talk about you being a woman in comedy? What are some of the struggles that you encounter on a regular basis?
Well, I would say that, you know, sometimes in comedy you do encounter people hitting on you a lot. Sometimes it is difficult to be taken seriously, or you don't know if someone is giving you opportunities or wants to help you because they think you're talented or because they think you're attractive. That's something I'm always like having to try to navigate. And so I'm kind of just like, oh, okay, wow, they believe in me. And then you realize, oh, they find out that you had a boyfriend and they never want to talk to you again. You're like, okay, so they did not think I was talented, or they did think I was talented, but they just wanted to hit on me. And like sometimes you'll never ever know. You won't really know the answer to that question. So I think like it's really important to have female mentorship. And that's something that like I really strongly believe in and want to be more involved in. But sometimes it kind of shocks me the lack of female mentorship that I see, like active female mentorship
Well,
going on.
but to that point, that was something else I want to talk about with you. Like in the era of Me Too, the whole women's empowerment thing has kind of become the forefront of all of our conversations in all of our social circles and professional circles. And I want to know, like, do you really believe that women in this industry really have each other's backs? And do you really feel like women empower women in our industry?
Sometimes, do you?
I mean, I say let me choose my words very carefully here. I think that meaning not just you and I, but women who have really achieved certain levels of success could do a hell of a lot better reaching back. Now,
I agree.
I understand that people have, you know, executive jobs and are writing shows and are just doing the creme de la creme of the entertainment industry's work. And so sometimes you might not have time to reach back and pull back an up and comer like you or like me. But I feel like there should be way more opportunities than I myself have experienced. On the other side, I'm working with a group of women currently who have given me a new perspective on what it's like to be a woman and to help other women. And it's so refreshing to me that these women seem to have my back, that they cheer for me, they respond to me quickly when I have a question over email. But it's so refreshing because I'm not used to it. And I'm not used to it because I don't think the whole women's empowerment thing really exists on the large scale that we are pretending that it does for talking points.
Right. No, I totally agree with you there. And like, I see some things like, you know, it's sometimes it can be really, really difficult to go on the road as a young female comic because it requires you, you know, to travel with someone, spend a lot of time with them. And sometimes you don't want to do that with a guy, or a guy where you don't understand what like the boundaries are, you know, within that situation, and or if they understand what your boundaries are. And so for me, for road gigs, I'm like, why aren't there more female comics just taking younger female comics? Because it would be so much more comfortable for everyone involved. And it'd be such a great way to help give them that road time, you know, the stage time, to have paid opportunities. Because in LA, there's not a whole bunch of them, you know, that's like really how you make money, you go on the road. And so sometimes it surprises me when I see like established female comics, especially ones that talk about women's empowerment, that don't take young women with them on the road with them, like a little sister, you know, like here's what you can learn. And that kind of stuff really disappoints me. Then that also kind of disappoints me when I see like female comics that, you know, have an interview where they say something that trashes other female comics in general. And there's one in particular who I've seen do this. And it's really kind of awful because they'll be like, oh, all the other female comics talk about sex or A, B, and C or blah, blah, blah. And I don't. I talk about that. And I'm just like, what value is in this statement that you're making? Like, really, you're successful, you're in a position where you're being interviewed, you have a platform, like why not bring people up? And that disappoints me too, really, when I see things like that. But like you said, like sometimes I think when people are at the top or they're killing it or they have opportunities that everyone else wants, like they cling on so hard and they're just so afraid of like letting other people in. Did you watch the Taylor Swift documentary, Miss Americana?
Yes, I did.
Okay, what'd you think about it? You like it?
I'm not a Swiftie. I don't want to take it that far, but I've always been fascinated and intrigued by her because I think she's very intelligent. and sometimes you're not able to really see how intelligent a pop star is. I enjoyed that documentary because I thought we were even able to see even more how smart she really is and see her evolution from struggling with her eating disorder to accepting herself as she's becoming more of a woman. I like that she took time off and was like, I need to be out of the public eye and have this relationship that no one else needs to be a part of. You know, I liked her evolution as a woman who was becoming more confident. What about you? What do you think about it?
I liked watching it and I thought it was interesting, but it was also really interesting to see this female like sisterhood thing also kind of being torn to the ground, which is one of the themes that I noticed within this documentary. Like even people in our peer group, there were clips of like, you know, hosts saying, you know, things about her or spreading gossip. And, you know, I guess sometimes that's the job to make content, but at the same time, it really highlighted that where I was like, ooh, yikes, imagine saying that and then being in this documentary. And there was a comedian, there was a joke or a clip of her maybe on radio or something or a podcast saying something about Taylor Swift that was kind of negative. It's Nikki Glazer.
You have to have a thigh gap to hang out with her. They screen all her friends. And it's just like, come on, enough.
And the only reason why I'll say her name is because she handled it well. So after that clip came out, she was devastated because she does love Taylor Swift. And she was like, look, like that clip, like, I don't know where that was coming from. And she made like a statement about it. And during the quarantine, she has done things like she's had like a Taylor Swift dance party to raise money for charities and stuff like that. And she's been like outwardly vocal about like how awful that was for her to be in the documentary because she was like, no, I love Taylor Swift actually. Like I listen to her music. Like I'm a fan of hers. I really, really respect what she's done. And so she kind of like flipped the script a little bit. And I think she handled that situation really well because like that would really suck if all of a sudden you're like, featured in her documentaries, like saying something negative and you're like, wait, like, what did I say that? Like, hold on, like, what was the context of that? Was that 10 years ago? Like, holy shit, I'm sorry. Like, I love her.
That's interesting though, Erin, because as host, oftentimes our job is to not only spew out like what the content of the day is, but also it's to critique it and to analyze it. And my lane is more sports than it is pop culture. But I mean, I've said some probably disparaging things, not probably, I have said some disparaging things from the perspective of someone who's following the sport analytically and statistically, that if it showed up in a documentary, I'm sure that I would get backlash. So how do you navigate your job as a host mixed with someone who has to find comic relief and topics, how you mix that and navigate that with not being too critical and tearing somebody down?
I mean, that's such a good question because I've probably done it too, you know, like I was on a daily show talking about like movies and just making, you know, we would have topics of things and a lot of them were rumors or things that never even came to fruition, but it was the job to give opinions on that. And sometimes you have to give a differing opinion because everyone else has the same opinion. So, and that's the thing that people don't always know. So it's easy to be in that situation sometimes where it's like, you know, if you're on a round table or a panel and there has to be one person with like a dissenting voice, sometimes you end up being that person. And it's not necessarily really in line with 100% what you would say if it was just you on your own. And so it's really, really easy to get caught up in situations like that. And that's why it's kind of like, who knows, like you kind of just have to do the best that you can in the moment. And then if it comes up or it's resurrected somehow, you just have to have some sort of way to combat that and be able to say like, look, this is kind of how the show worked. And I'm sorry. And I think about that a lot because I'm just like, geez, it's part of the reason why I stopped doing that type of hosting. But there's a possibility that like in the future, I might take a job like that again.
Never say never. Now at the part of the Big Dog, Little Dog podcast where we are playing rapid fire questions. You have to answer each question truthfully without giving it much thought as quickly as you can. Morning person or night owl?
Morning person for sure.
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
I've received a lot of good pieces of advice, but I think one of them, the best one that changed the shape of my career was to stop doing what you don't want to do professionally. You know, you just have to stop and have the trust and the courage to go in the other direction if you want to change directions.
Bay Area or Southern California?
I think always Bay Area. I love the Bay Area. I know.
Okay. If you have to eat one food every day for the rest of your life, what is it?
Oh man, enchiladas. My mom's enchiladas.
Okay. Twitter or Instagram?
Instagram.
Okay. The one thing that frightens you the most?
I think the one thing that frightens me the most is not being able to do all the things that I want to do. I want to do too much stuff.
Sex, morning, noon, or night?
Wait, what?
I said sex, morning, noon, or night, or all
Yeah,
three.
definitely night.
Okay.
Night.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you passed the test. You passed the rapid fire big dog questions test. You were
Good.
We want to celebrate our successes, obviously, but the road to success is always paved with a lot of shit that doesn't look pretty. So just talk about one or two times, or the one time in your career that you felt the lowest, that you have been able to like climb out and have been able to overcome it.
Wow. Okay. So I've been in so many situations like this, but I think one of them would be I was in an emotionally abusive relationship. And when I left that relationship, it changed a lot of my career. And like, this is someone that would talk, like, they told me that I wouldn't ever be successful without them, that kind of stuff. And after being with someone for a while, it kind of gets in your head, even though
Right.
you're like, oh, that's bullshit. That's not true.
How
But
long were,
then
how long were you together with this person?
a year.
Okay. Okay.
Right. But for some reason, like, it was just in my head all the time. And I started to believe it. And I was feeling very hopeless and lost and unsure of what I wanted to do. And so that was kind of like one rock bottom. That's probably the biggest one of my life, to be honest. And it's so crazy. That's why I'm like a big advocate for mental health, because sometimes people get out of situations like that and we don't necessarily think that it's affected our mental well-being, but it does. And so that was a huge one that kind of combined career and personal life. And so climbing out of that, believing in myself again, going to therapy, getting the help that I needed, and honestly, just having a couple of wins after that. Like, I remember I booked this gig working with the NFL. And like shortly after that was my first time on camera after that experience. And I remember being so insecure and thinking like, oh my gosh, like am I good at this anymore? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I believe in myself. And my mom came to my place and wrote on Post-its all over my room, like, you can do this. You're talented. You're strong. You're brave. And put them all over like my bathroom and my mirrors. Like, I'm going to cry. Like, and honestly, like going through that experience and like remembering that, someone really believes in me, even if it's your mom, like, so, like, that's
Especially
powerful.
like moms are our day one cheerleaders, and they
Yeah.
all the shit, all the not booked jobs, all the f ups, all the bad relationships. Like, they, like, if you are blessed to have a mom in your corner like that, because everyone is not. So I applaud your mom. I'm happy that she like was the ultimate mom for you during that time. Like, that's beautiful.
Yeah, she was pretty awesome.
We talk about therapy so flippantly out here in LA, but everyone across the nation isn't as doesn't live in an environment where therapy is applauded or encouraged as much. So I like that you talked about that, because I know growing up in Georgia, in South Georgia, we didn't talk about therapy, not really. Like, my dad died when I was 13 suddenly, and my family and I went to therapy for that. But after that, I didn't talk about therapy again until about 3 or 4 years ago. So I hope that people listening who don't have support systems that encourage therapy, and I
Oh
don't mean
my
just
gosh, yeah.
church. I don't mean just church. It's go to church, go see the pastor, let the pastor pray for you. No, do that, but also go see a professional who can help you work through some of like your shit that a pastor and a deacon might not be able to get into.
That's so true. And also that's like, being mixed. That's like another thing I noticed is like culturally, like my white family is way more likely to go to therapy than my Mexican family, especially the men, So it's like, there's no shame. Let's destigmatize this. If you need help, get help. Like, there's resources for you, and there's nothing wrong with like spending the money on it.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong with spending the time on it. And there's absolutely no wrong in like investigating like what's going on and having like a third party get involved to help you, because sometimes you need it.
So you are a comedian, writer, actor, podcaster, and like the young people say, we stand. Have you seen people say that? The young folks say like, oh, we stand. Do you know that?
No, what does that mean? Am I old? What?
You got to get on Twitter for this kind of lingo. I think it's a reference to Eminem's song Stan.
You get this, man. Hit me back. Just a chat. Truly yours. Your biggest fan. This is Stan.
I think I could be royally messing this up. But when we say that we stand somebody, or when the young kids say they stand somebody, it means like, I applaud you, I salute you.
Oh, like a fan kind of.
Yeah, like a fan. So yeah,
I salute you too. I'm a fan of you.
stand. Girl, I mean, listen, I am making it. I think it's important for all of us to appreciate all the little wins along the way as we are making it, because there's not one destination, it's the journey, right?
Yeah, that's so true. And it's so weird. Like if you talk to people and you ask them like, what is the, like, what moment do you think that you've made it? Or what needs to happen for you to think that you've made it? Like most successful people like don't have an answer for that because they're like, you never feel like you make it. So that's why it's so important to feel like you're making it the whole time.
But I'm going to challenge you on this. Have you ever had a moment in your career where you thought, I have made it?
No, not yet. It's coming, girl. It's coming.
You're a big dog to me because we've known each other, or at least have known of each other for a while now. So
Yeah.
I've watched your evolution. So when I was thinking about people I wanted to bring on, I was like, Erin is to me a behemoth in her circle of people. Before I let you go, plug every little thing from a hot pizza ass to whatever else you're working on. Let us know where to find you.
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram at Darling with 4 H's, Twitter, Erin A. Darling. And if you go to my bio on Twitter or on Instagram, you can find all of my links. You can find my comedy class, How to Find Your Voice on Comedy. You can also find like Patreon and the ways to listen to Hot Pizza Ass, which is on iTunes and Spotify. But really, it's just easy if you go to my link in the bio because it has everything there that you could ever possibly want. And I just want to thank you so much, Erica. I'm proud of you. I love you. I think you're extremely talented. And I'm so excited to be on your show.
Until next time, guys, all for today's Big Dog, Little Dog.